Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Killjoy. So, quite a few things went down in this episode. Obviously, you have so many interesting things come up. First of all, there's the whole Pip situation. I think it's fascinating. Even though he's got that thing inside of him, it still hasn't really changed the fact is that he's still a little Pip. I guess it's kind of inside of him dormant, I guess, because it doesn't seem like it has a whole full-on Holland effect of like, oh man, like once it's inside of you, like you completely change personality. Like it's like, no, it seems like a lot of his personality is still there. Not unless it's faking, but it seems like it's dormant. I mean, he looked at the spider thing and it kind of made him pause for a few seconds. But then that is just, it's weird because it's almost like if it wasn't for that, you'd almost forget that that thing was inside of him because he doesn't act that different. I love the whole conversation of him and Zeph and like, oh yeah, where we go from here? Like, what are we? It's like, no. Like, we both thought we were almost about to die, so we had sex. It's like going forward, you know, we could keep up this whole, she's like, I don't really want a relationship because I've never really been good at him. But it's like, oh, we could continue having sex and cuddling. And Pip's kind of like, oh, no, I'm perfectly fine with those conditions. I mean, kind of how far you went, you know, so I thought that's kind of neat. So with Pip, they both get deputized and brought into the, as, you know, Killjoys, which is so interesting. Like, you know, you have, like, I guess while he's giving his speech and everything, you have, Zeph kind of singing at the same time. He's like, do you want to be doing this, Zeph? And she's like, no. It's just like, why would you do it? I guess it's such a monumentous moment. Maybe it's like, I guess she kind of feels like since she's kind of there, it's like, oh yeah, maybe I should say this speech too. Because it's like, almost like I'm deputizing you. And it's kind of like, promise not to choose sides. And Priest's like, ooh, I choose sides all the time. What was it? Not to take bribe. And Pip's like, I kind of take bribes. It's like, shut up and get out there and find me a Jacoby. I just love that. But they're able to track down Lucy, but Lucy's got some security things in play, and now they're locked on a ship with no way. Because it's like, oh, like what happened? Like, because I was almost scared too. I was like, oh man, someone on a ship. Especially when like the lights came on and Pip got so scared he started firing his gun multiple times, bam, 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 bam. And then Pre came in and just looked at him, and just like, I was so disappointed in him. And you just see him go. Once again, it's like if you didn't know that thing was in him, you wouldn't think it was in him just because of the way he was acting. Like he's acting like normal Pip. Like I said, that thing's like super dormant in his system. But yeah, them kind of being locked in there and everything, and the system's they're trying to get out of the system. And I love that all of them try different things. Like Zeph tries to get her like Dutch kind of, you know, voice changer to make it sound like she's Dutch. And then Priest's like, oh, you gotta imagine, you gotta be imagining that you're wearing the leather pants. You got to be the leather pants. And then he kicks in, and he's like, I don't know, I guess it doesn't have anything to do with Dutch because like my performance was amazing, which to be fair, yeah, he nailed it on what it would be, exactly what Dutch would need to say. So that's pretty badass. And then you have Pip trying to talk like Johnny, but it's interesting because obviously he's talking about like the thing between Johnny and Lucy, and also like, I interpreted it as this, and I thought Zeph was kind of interpreting it that. I mean, she didn't say anything, but it, like when he was talking about like, oh yeah, you and me, Lucy, I think he was really saying like, oh, you and me, Zeph. Maybe he was, maybe I'm just assuming. Like to me, it just seemed like it was kind of middle of the road for both of them type of thing. But in the end, what it ended up being was like, it was a specific song, the song Johnny was playing when he first met Dutch all those years ago. Yes, 8 years ago. So, but nevertheless, I thought that was kind of pretty neat. Lucy's back online and everything because she shut herself down just to make sure if anyone found her, they couldn't trace her back to Johnny and the others, which is interesting. Really kind of going back to it is what Zeph had done. She had like set up like things on the dolls so that she could basically control them a little bit more and better. They do let out the words like she's coming. Obviously they don't know what that means, but Johnny, Delsea, and Dav and Dutch know what that means, which is interesting. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and skip around because Dutch comes back at the end of the episode, but it's like, now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, and the fact is that it crystallized behind her, it's like, are we 100% sure that is Dutch? The last time we saw Dutch, it seemed like the lady of the green caught up with her and kind of like hijacked. So she could be hijacking like Dutch's form. She might be another person running around looking like Dutch and Anila. So there might be three of them now. Like that might be what the lady's doing now. She might have left in her body, and maybe that's why Dutch is unconscious. Maybe the lady has plans for, I mean, I don't know. She saved Davin, so part of me wonders, like, is that just to earn their trust, or was that a little bit of Dutch still in there? Maybe, like, Dutch's consciousness didn't completely escape the green. Maybe, like, enough to form a body, her body escaped, but not her mind. You know what I mean? It crystallizing like that might be, like, whatever it is that Klein did, but part of me is wondering, like, maybe it's not entirely Dutch that came out of there, you know? Like, it could be also because, like I said, maybe on some level the lady has some interest in Davin. I mean, he's kind of an anomaly that's kind of interesting. So, especially with the whole baby situation, which we'll get to soon enough. But, I don't know, it kind of makes you wonder about that. Obviously, another part of this episode is the whole Johnny and Davin dealing with, you know, Davin trying to adjust to this whole thing. It's like, Johnny's like, yeah, like, why would you trust Delsea? Literally, that lady has done so much. She killed Potter. She and Anila are the reason why Dutch isn't here and almost tried to kill me type of thing. So it's like, why would you even trust her? And he's like, honestly, evil Johnny's kind of got a point. So it's kind of like, oh, a little bit of a brotherly bonding episode, but it also seems like Johnny has his ulterior motives. Like, even though you do see him trying to fight, that's what that whole Dutch thing is. It is like the last, like, the good side of Johnny manifesting itself as that version of Dutch. But also part of me wonders, is that completely just in his head? Because it might be because he is tapped into the green, and we know that, well, she exists in the green and they have that connection. So maybe on some level, Dutch, you know, tapped into the green that's inside of Johnny, you know, maybe potentially, could be completely wrong about that. That could have just legitimately just been his conscience, you know, manifesting into form. The little bit of Johnny's heart that was left still fighting inside of him, you know, because everything he was doing was some lie. He's like, oh, I'm setting this all up so we can get Dutch back, and then I can turn back to normal. Because even Davin eventually was like, are you sure you're going to be willing to give this up? Because, like, you made this makeshift bomb, you're able to move this stone slab like it was nothing, and Dutch on the inside is talking like, yeah, he's almost catching up to you. It's also interesting, too, because of the whole situation between Davin and Johnny, like, where Johnny constantly makes references to, like, oh, yeah, it makes me think of the camping trip we went on. Dad was drinking and Mom was getting high, and then, you know, Mom's sick, and then she was so brokenhearted when you left. And then Davin's like, when this is all said and done, you're going to drop that ammunition against me. The fact is that he constantly uses that against Davin. The fact is that Davin left. Because even Dutch is like, he blames himself so much, and you let him do that. Why? It's like, it's a debt. Because I don't know because the thing I find fascinating, it's hard to say whether or not that's actual Johnny kind of being a little resentful that the Holland's tapping into, or whether the Holland's just doing that just to be a dick. I kind of feel like it could be both. Like, I think somewhere deep inside, he probably never admitted out loud, but on some level, like, Johnny probably still holds a little resentment towards Davin for leaving. I mean, Davin kind of got him back last season because it's like, yeah, you were the one that left and I was the one that stayed. I kind of got to be the responsible one for once. But it's like, that kind of sucks. It's like Davin made that mistake back then, and it's kind of like, yeah, like, even though, like I said, because it's got to bother him, because on some level that must mean that Johnny does kind of feel like that. It's just the Holland's bringing that to the surface. He never would probably bring it himself. He might be passive aggressive about it, but not to that extent and that verbal about it. So it's just kind of like a dagger sticking deeper in him. But the thought that Johnny might still hold that against him somewhere deep down in his consciousness or in his heart is kind of sad, you know. But it seems like his entire plan wasn't to find Dutch. That the whole plan was that he was going to get inside of the green so that he can make himself whole in it, and then go out and do whatever he wants to. This was never about Dutch. He just knew he could do exactly what he needed to get Davin's attention, get him to kind of go along with this plan. It's interesting, too, because he brought up a point. It's like, yeah, you're going to have to choose one, because you're not going to be able to have both Dutch and the baby. Like, you're going to have to say bye-bye to one of them. But, hey, that's something you're good at. Just stick it in one last time. It's like, oh, yeah, you'd be such a dick, Johnny. But, yeah, that was actually kind of a pretty impressive move when, like, Davin had the gun pulled on his fires, and Johnny, like, moves the cuffs in a way just so that the link in the cuffs could be cut. I was like, that was pretty smooth. And then he shot Davin. I was like, oh, that sucks. I was like, oh, that sucks big time. But it's like, hey, Davin's okay. He wore body armor. It's also interesting, too, because a conversation had come up before where Johnny was kind of a little more composed. He was himself again. I would assume saying this, it's like, if you need to, you know, pop me with his powers. But he's like, no, it's not going to come to that, brother. You're going to be okay. We're going to make it through this. You're going to get cured and everything. It's not going to resort to that. You just keep fighting a little bit longer. But as time has slipped on, more and more Johnny is fading away. So that last little bit of Dutch we saw kind of taunting him to fight is the last bit of it. So Davin started using it, but then like Johnny being like, kill me. It's just, you know, it's like I said, no matter what the situation, it's still his little brother, so he's hesitant about it. So like I said, once again, it's hard to say what that whole Dutch situation means. Like I said, it could mean anything of what I brought up before. Also, on the other side of things, too, is the whole Dulcea thing. Once again, it blows my mind. Like, Dulcea being who she is like, yeah, you know, but B, you stay here, let me handle this. And it's like kind of going all 9 mode and just kind of being like the princess that she is. Kind of like, I'm royalty, so, and I kind of run things. So she kind of beat the crap out of the warden and as well as the other people. Once again, it's like, man, even pregnant, she can kick ass. Like, that whole stuff is no joke. But she gets, I guess, sedated with those darts. But basically, she works with B to escape. And I like that whole aspect of her being like, oh, I'm going to teach you how to basically manipulate and break men like the warden. Kind of use their whole greediness against them and learn how to break even greedier men than him, which is definitely going to be interesting. Maybe that's be something we see kind of going forward in the future, like her becoming a little bit more like Dulcea, which is last thing you need is another Dulcea running around. But once again, I think I talked about this a little bit last season. Man, did they do like a turnaround on Dulcea? You kind of hated Dulcea, but like things went down in season 3. You're like, oh, the whole her and Anila thing, they were still being bad guys, but then the thing between her, Johnny, and Davin, and just like that's how they ended off season 3, and they've been playing with that even more because it's like, oh man, this is the Dulcea that you kind of like. She's not the enemy necessarily, she's the baby mama, and it's just kind of like, whoa, caught up in this. As she found out and discovered herself, she's like, wow, this actually is a family that she's part of. She is part of the family with all of this, which is crazy in itself. So, but manipulating the dude, she ended up getting him being used as the farm for organs now, which I doubt we have seen the last of him because he's like, you haven't seen the last. And she's like, come on, don't come to me about evil speeches. Like, come on, I'm premium at that. So her and B are out, and it's like, oh, look who shows up. Pip, and Zeph. It's like, you literally show up right when I get my own freedom. Like, why'd you? It's like, oh, your timing is terrible. And then it's like, oh yeah, and they even have like Pre being like, don't step to me because I'm not one that you should like try. I'm paraphrasing. And then like Pip, read it or right. He kind of like arrests her. He's like, I always wanted to say that. She's like, you're touching me. He's like, oh, I'm sorry, you know, your ladyship, and kind of wipes her shoulder off. So it's kind of neat. Team Awesome Force and everyone is reunited again, but Dutch is sadly in a coma. Johnny's getting worse by the second because they'd have to find the pool of green that is tied to the one that's inside of him to make sure that he can get cured. But also at the same time, it turns out that Dulcea's water broke. So, and secretly, they don't know about the whole Pip being infected thing. So it's like, where did this go next episode? Like, overly finding out about this Dutch situation. Because we still never found out what the hell Klein and Anila were up to. It's like, okay, Dutch got her own thing to do, but what are you two doing inside of the green, you know? Like, maybe they're kind of like a side strategy. Because I'm sure that's something Dulcea's like, yo, like, oh, Dutch came out, oh, that's awesome, it's fine, but where's my love? Where's my Anila? I even love that her being like, oh, like when she was kind of unconscious and the dude was doing whatever, and she's like, oh, Anila, stop. It's just like, oh, like I said, you see a different side of her, and I loved it. Because I love it, because it's like, this is a bad guy that they shifted a little bit. You're like, I love you. Like, you're so charismatic and funny, and the interactions you have with these characters. Because she's always been like, ooh, Dulcea, I hate you so much. She's been like that since season 1. She's definitely like that in season 2. She was a lot like that in season 3, but season 3 nearing the end, like I said, shifted that a little bit. But it's so fascinating. So Then there's the whole situation with the Armada. What's going to happen to Dad? I mean, technically, Delcea's in control with that whole situation, so they're not really going to do anything. The war has stopped for now. The question is, will she change her mind now that with the whole Anila hasn't coming back thing, or she might not be quick to start up the war. But then again, there's the lady, if she comes out, she might start the war back up because she might be the one's like, oh, I'm free now, and here I am about to lay waste to this. I'll take control of the whole one, which is a bad thing for Delcea because it's like, no. For one, that's kind of like it's attacking her throne too because she's the queen to the queen. So it's kind of like, the only person sitting in that chair is Anila, and the only one to sit beside her side is me, that type of thing. So we'll see in the end what ends up happening with all of that. I mean, that's the big thing too, is like, what's going to happen with this baby? This baby's mixed with Davin and Anila, so it's kind of like, what is about to be born, a child it's so interesting too, because considering what Davin does to the green, you think that would mess with the baby's whole inside as well. So, but maybe it gains it some new immunity or even greater power. We have no idea what this child situation is going to be like. Also, what the family dynamic is going to be like, especially with things being the way they are. Anila's not around. Dutch is kind of catatonic / comatose. Catatonic is the word I was looking for. Earlier this week, I want to say it was Thursday, whatever the case may be. I was doing a recording. I couldn't think of the word catatonic. Just hit me. And then there's the whole, Johnny's in a situation. He's in. It's a lot. And I'm so excited to see where this all takes us in the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.